Chapter 1, The Challenge. The Galactic Summit of Sovereign Species was an event of spectacle and grandeur, a gathering of the most powerful civilizations in the known universe. Towering crystalline structures surrounded the council chamber, their faceted surfaces refracting light and dazzling displays of alien artistry. Hovering observation drones relayed the proceedings across the stars, broadcasting humanity's so-called trial to every corner of the galactic community. Captain Elias Vance stood at the center of the circular chamber, facing hundreds of alien delegates seated in ascending tiers. Their eyes, some compound, some glowing, others cold and reptilian, were locked on him. Suspicion. Contempt. Amusement. He had seen that expression before in 1,000 variations. Above them, a massive hologram displayed Earth in real time. A single blue and green sphere floating in the void. No sprawling interstellar colonies. No planetary conquests. Just one planet. The voice of Archduke Zeltharis cut through the murmur of the crowd like a blade. Humans. Tell me, why should we take you seriously? Zeltharis was a towering figure, draped in flowing robes embroidered with constellations from his empire. His kind, the Zalsarai, prided themselves on their multi-world dominion, ruling over 70 planets. He stepped forward, his obsidian eyes gleaming with condescension. Every species here understands the fundamental truth of survival, expansion, growth, dominance. You, however, cling to a single rock. A single fragile world. It is an anomaly, an absurdity. What happens when that world fails you? The crowd responded with laughter. A deep, resonating wave of alien amusement. Elias waited, standing firm. He had expected this. He welcomed it. He let the laughter die before speaking. One sentence. Calm. Controlled. A razor to their arrogance. How many of your homeworlds have survived an extinction-level event? Silence. The gathered elites of the galactic community exchanged glances. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Zeltharis' smug expression faltered for half a second, just enough for Elias to press forward. Earth has survived 5. A hush fell over the assembly. 5 extinction-level catastrophes, Elias continued, his voice steady, measured. Ice ages that turn continents into frozen wastelands. Supervolcanoes that blacken the sky for centuries. Meteor impacts that erased entire species. The rise and fall of megafauna, the shifting of tectonic plates, magnetic field reversals, and biological plagues that rewrote the very fabric of life. He took a step forward, voice unwavering. Earth tried to kill us before we ever had the chance to leave. And yet, here we stand. The silence was total. A delegate from the Vieri Dominion, a species of crystalline beings, shifted uneasily. A Tarkesh warlord, whose kind had conquered 3 systems, narrowed his many eyes. Even the Maldrathi, an amphibious race known for their cold pragmatism, exchanged hushed words. Zeltharis recovered quickly. His lips curled into a sneer. A poetic tale, but an irrelevant one. You humans did not endure those events, your ancestors did, in a time before civilization. He gestured dismissively. Survival is not history. It is power. Show me proof of your strength, not of your past. Elias exhaled slowly. There it was. The opening he had been waiting for. Fine. He turned slightly, addressing the assembly. If survival is the metric by which we are judged, then I propose a test. Murmurs erupted. Some of intrigue. Others of disbelief. Zeltharis raised an eyebrow. A test? A simulation, Elias clarified. Impose on Earth the same cataclysmic events that have wiped out entire species across the stars. Let's see if our single rock survives. The Croth Coalition delegate, a skeletal insectoid, clicked its mandibles. Ridiculous. A planet-bound species cannot endure galactic-scale catastrophe. Elias smiled. Then you have nothing to fear. Zeltharis hesitated. He had expected arguments, excuses, not a challenge. The assembled species whispered among themselves. Some watched with keen interest, eager to witness humanity's humiliation. Others seemed wary. Then the Archduke laughed. "Very well," he said, sweeping an arm outward. "Let it be known across the stars, humanity has invited its own trial. We shall impose upon your world a simulated extinction event. Your people will be observed. Your resilience, measured." He leaned in, voice mocking. "And when you fail, when Earth burns, the galaxy will remember the day humanity learned its place." Elias didn't blink. He simply extended a hand. "Then we have an accord." Zeltharis's sneer deepened, but he clasped Elias's hand in an official gesture of agreement. The deal was struck. The trial was set. Elias held his grip firm, his voice just loud enough for the Archduke alone to hear. "Be careful what you wish for." Because he knew something the aliens didn't, something that would make them regret ever mocking Earth. They thought they were about to watch humanity struggle. What they were about to witness was humanity at its finest. Chapter 2, The Trial of Earth. The trial began with a spectacle. A colossal view screen dominated the Galactic Summit's chamber, displaying a live feed of Earth. Every species with a vested interest in humanity's downfall had tuned in. Billions across the stars waited to witness what they assumed would be a lesson in planetary fragility. Elias Vance stood at the center of it all, hands clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the screen. He wasn't worried. They had no idea what was coming. Zeltharis raised a clawed hand, his voice smooth, confident. "Let us begin." From the orbiting Zalsari command station, the order was given. A vast asteroid, its mass rivaling the one that had ended the dinosaurs, was set on a collision course with Earth. It would impact within hours, triggering a global catastrophe, firestorms, tsunamis, an atmosphere choked with dust. The summit chamber filled with hushed murmurs. Some species shook their heads in pity. Others exchanged smug glances. One planet. One inevitable fate. But while they watched with amusement, Earth was already moving. Target locked. Aboard orbital defense platforms, computers calculated the asteroid's trajectory. 14 minutes later, the counterattack began. A dozen nuclear-tipped interceptor missiles launched in rapid succession from silos hidden beneath Arctic ice sheets. A synchronized strike followed from Earth's space-based kinetic platforms, firing hypervelocity impactors toward the oncoming mass. The first nuclear detonations fractured the asteroid. The kinetic slugs pulverized the largest fragments. What remained was no longer a planet killer, just debris. Elias turned, letting the silence stretch. He wanted to savor the moment. Zeltharis's jaw tightened. Impressive, but futile. The damage is already done. The atmosphere will choke with dust, the sun will dim. Your crops will fail, your oceans will acidify. Your world is doomed to starvation and collapse. Elias smiled. You think this is the first time we've faced an event like this? The aliens watched as the next phase of Earth's response unfolded. In mere hours, emergency protocols were activated across the globe. Massive subterranean reserves of genetically engineered crops, designed for nuclear winter survival, were deployed. Oxygen factories kicked into high gear, compensating for atmospheric imbalance. Weather control satellites, originally designed for climate moderation, redirected hurricane-force winds to disperse lingering dust clouds. Cloud seeding drones released aerosols that forced precipitation, clearing the air. Entire continents adapted, as if they'd been preparing for this moment all along. Because they had. A delegate from the Maldrathi Confederacy, his amphibious features pale, muttered, they were ready for this. The Tarkesh warlord's voice clicked through mandibles, disbelief laced in every word. They neutralized a planetary extinction event in a single day. Elias turned to Zeltharis, expression unreadable. Next test? The Archduke's claws curled. He wouldn't be humiliated so easily. Phase 2 began. A bioengineered pathogen, tailored for maximum virulence, capable of wiping out entire ecosystems, was introduced into Earth's atmosphere. The galaxy had seen such plagues before. Entire species had been reduced to nothing but artifacts. But Earth's response was immediate. Within minutes, a fully automated system of AI-driven epidemiology labs isolated and sequenced the pathogen. Global task forces deployed self-replicating nanites to neutralize airborne strains. By the end of the day, the plague was a memory. A Zalcerai scientist gasped. That's impossible, it was designed to mutate faster than they could adapt. Elias's voice was calm. So was smallpox. So was the Black Death. So was the Spanish flu. Every few generations, our own planet tried to wipe us out. We stopped it every time. Your engineered plague was just another Tuesday. The summit chamber erupted into shocked murmurs. Zeltharis's confident facade was crumbling. His people had designed the tests to be unwinnable. And yet, every catastrophe thrown at Earth was handled with brutal efficiency. He wasn't just witnessing survival. He was witnessing dominance. Still, he wasn't ready to concede. He lifted a hand. The final stage of the trial was about to begin. Earth would burn. Orbital bombardment platforms, disguised as neutral observation stations, powered up. Beams of concentrated plasma, enough to boil oceans, streaked toward Earth's surface. For the first time, an alien species would directly attack humanity's homeworld. Elias exhaled, slow and steady. They had just made a terrible mistake. The wrath of Earth. From military installations hidden across the solar system, Earth's true power emerged. Orbital defense grids activated, intercepting every plasma strike before it could reach the surface. A hidden network of stealth satellites launched precision counterstrikes, disabling enemy platforms in seconds. Then came the retaliation. Aboard an unmarked station near Mars, a voice crackled over a secure frequency. Authorization confirmed. Operation Skyfall is a go. From the far side of Earth's moon, hundreds of railgun platforms, long thought to be simple observation posts, unleashed hell. Electromagnetic slugs, traveling at Mach 15, tore through Zalcerai warships in low orbit. In less than 2 minutes, the attackers had been annihilated. Silence fell upon the chamber. Zeltharis's face had lost all color. He turned, slowly, towards Elias. You had these weapons, the entire time? Elias met his gaze, unwavering. Of course. The Archduke swallowed hard. The true trial had not been for Earth. It had been for the rest of the galaxy. They had thought humanity weak. They had believed one planet was a vulnerability. But Earth wasn't a weakness. It was a fortress. The assembled alien delegations, once so sure of humanity's insignificance, now looked at Elias with something far stronger than respect. They looked at him with fear. And Elias knew exactly what to say to drive the point home. He folded his arms, watching Zeltharis's claws twitch in silent rage. I told you, he said, voice calm, unwavering. Be careful what you wish for. Chapter 3, The Turning Point. The chamber of the Galactic Summit was silent. Not the silence of contemplation. Not the pause before a debate. This was something deeper. Fear. Moments ago, the assembled species of the galaxy had watched Earth endure 3 extinction-level trials, an asteroid impact, a planetary plague, and direct orbital bombardment. Each one had been designed to break humanity. Each one had been neutralized with terrifying efficiency. Now, Earth's retaliation had left Zalcerai warships in orbit as nothing but debris fields. The same summit that had gathered to mock humanity was now trapped in the gravity of a new reality. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity was a sleeping giant, and they had just kicked it awake. Elias Vance, standing at the center of it all, let the silence stretch. He wanted every alien in that room to sit with the weight of what they had just seen. Finally, Archduke Zeltharis spoke. His voice, once dripping with amusement, now carried something else entirely, hesitation. You had these defenses in place for how long? Elias turned to face him. His expression was unreadable. Long enough. Zeltharis's claws flexed against the smooth stone of the council floor. Why? Why prepare for a war that never came? Elias let out a slow breath, measuring his words. Because we knew it would come. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Delegates shifted, uneasy. A diplomat from the Vieri Dominion, a crystalline species that thrived on logic, leaned forward. Explain. Elias took a step forward, his voice calm, deliberate. Every species in this room assumes that survival is about expansion. That to thrive, you must spread across the stars, consume resources, dominate new worlds. But that was never our way. He gestured to the holographic image of Earth, still hovering above them. We didn't expand because we didn't need to. We perfected survival where we stood. He locked eyes with Zeltharis. You asked why we stayed on one planet? The real question is, why did you leave yours? That struck a nerve. The Archduke's jaw clenched. To grow. To avoid stagnation. To ensure the future of our people. Elias gave a small, knowing smile. Or was it because your homeworld wasn't enough? Because it couldn't sustain you? More whispers. More uncertainty. The delegation from the Tarkesh war tribes, once confident in their conquests, exchanged wary glances. Even the Maldrathi, their amphibious bodies shifting in discomfort, couldn't deny the truth. Every species here had left their homeworld because they had to. Humanity never had to. Elias continued, voice steady. You look at Earth and see fragility. We look at Earth and see the greatest teacher we ever had. It threw ice ages at us, we adapted. It drowned our lands, we built. It burned us, we endured. It taught us to fight, to innovate, to survive. And in return, we made it our fortress. He let the words settle before delivering the final blow. You mock us for having one planet. But tell me, how many of your original homeworlds still stand? Silence. The truth was undeniable. Many species represented here no longer had homeworlds. Some had been lost to war, others to environmental collapse. A few had simply become unusable, abandoned as their people spread elsewhere. But Earth? Earth still stood. Zeltharis's breathing was controlled, but his eyes flickered with something Elias had seen many times before. The look of a man realizing he had lost. But then, something else changed. The Archduke straightened, his expression shifting. Not to anger, or frustration, but calculation. And what now, Captain Vance? His voice had regained some of its composure. You have proven your world's resilience. You have demonstrated power. Do you mean to threaten us? To claim vengeance for this trial? Elias exhaled through his nose. We don't need vengeance. We just need you to remember. Zeltharis narrowed his eyes. Remember what? Elias took one last look around the summit chamber, ensuring that every species, every ruler, warlord, diplomat, and general, was listening. Then he spoke. Remember what happens when you threaten Earth. The weight of those words settled like a storm rolling in. No further threats were made. No declarations of war were issued. There was no need. Because the entire galaxy had just learned something they would never forget. Humanity did not expand because they were weak. They did not spread because they lacked the ability. They remained on one planet because that planet had shaped them into something unbreakable. And if the galaxy ever dared to test them again, they would not be so merciful. Chapter 4, The Aftermath. The Galactic Summit was no longer the stage for humanity's humiliation. It had become the site of something far more significant, a reckoning. Elias Vance stood firm at the center of the chamber, his expression unreadable. Around him, the alien delegates whispered among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances. Everything had changed. The Zalsarai, the architects of the trial, had come expecting to break Earth's spirit. Instead, they had exposed their own arrogance. The galaxy now understood that humanity was not some fragile anomaly, not an isolated species waiting for extinction. Earth was strong. Humanity was prepared. And perhaps most terrifying of all, they had never even shown their full hand. The price of hubris. Archduke Zeltharis had remained silent since Elias had delivered his final warning. He had expected defiance, rage, even retaliation. But instead, the humans had simply waited. The Archduke could feel the shifting tide. The other species had seen the truth, and now, some of them were looking at the Zalsarai with something dangerously close to contempt. A Zeltharis official leaned toward him, voice hushed. "Archduke, we must leave." "This?" Zeltharis held up a clawed hand. His mind raced. His people had ruled through calculated dominance, using fear and power to keep others in check. Now, that fear had changed hands. He turned to Elias, forcing composure into his voice. "You have made your point, Captain Vance. Humanity has demonstrated its strength. But what happens now?" Elias tilted his head. "That depends." Zeltharis's claws twitched. "On what?" Elias met his gaze, unblinking. "On whether you try something like this again." The threat was not shouted. There was no bravado in Elias's tone, no need for posturing. And that was what made it so much worse. Because the message was clear, humanity did not seek war, but they would end one if forced. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken tension. Then, from the far side of the chamber, a voice cut through the air. "I propose a vote." Heads turned toward the speaker, High Chancellor Orlanes of the Viari Dominion. A composed figure of crystalline blue, Orlanes was known for ruthless logic, his people priding themselves on reason above all else. If the Viari had decided to speak, it meant they had already calculated the outcome. The Zalsarai initiated this trial under the claim that humanity was an anomaly. That they were weak, unsuited for galactic membership. We have now witnessed that claim disproven beyond all doubt. As such, I move that the Zalsarai's authority over such matters be formally revoked. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Zeltharis's claws tightened into fists. "You dare!" Orlanes did not look at him. His crystalline eyes remained on Elias. "I also move that humanity be granted full recognized status as an independent power, with all associated rights and protections under interstellar law." Now, there was shock. Not just at the words, but at the sheer weight of them. For centuries, the Zalsarai had positioned themselves as the arbiters of galactic order. For another species to formally strip them of that power was unprecedented. Zeltharis stood abruptly. "This is an outrage." "You think you can?" Another voice interrupted. Seconded. All eyes turned to the speaker, General Kael'thak of the Tarkesh war clans. Zeltharis froze. The Tarkesh were warriors, brutal conquerors who thrived on combat. That they, of all species, would support humanity's recognition was a devastating blow. Kael'thak inclined his head toward Elias, mandibles clicking in what could almost be mistaken for respect. "A species that can defend itself deserves its place among us." One by one, the delegations murmured in agreement. The Maldrathi, the Kelri, the Ashen Collective, all species that had once viewed humanity as insignificant now found themselves reconsidering everything. And with every word of support, Zeltharis felt his grip on the galaxy slipping through his claws. Humanity's place among the stars. The vote was held. The verdict? Humanity was now an officially recognized power. The Zalsarai had lost. Zeltharis said nothing as the result was announced. There was nothing left to say. The chamber erupted into a flurry of shifting alliances, of new treaties being formed, of old power structures crumbling in real time. Humanity's strength had rewritten the rules of the galaxy. Elias Vance observed it all with a quiet satisfaction. He had not come seeking power. He had simply come to ensure that Earth was never again underestimated. Now, he had done exactly that. As he turned to leave the chamber, a figure stepped into his path. General Kael'thak. The Tarkesh warrior studied him for a long moment before speaking. You fought well today, human. Your people will make interesting allies, or formidable enemies. Elias held his gaze. That depends on which one you choose to be. Kalfok let out a low, rumbling chuckle. Indeed. With that, the warlord stepped aside, allowing Elias to pass. As he walked toward the exit, he felt the weight of countless alien eyes on him. Some with curiosity. Some with weariness. And some with fear. Humanity had proven itself. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the depths of space, there were those who had watched today's events and begun making new plans. Some would seek humanity's friendship. Others would seek its destruction. Either way, Earth would be ready.